What's the good word? It's your boy DKB here. So there's an interesting little interview that I came across involving two-time Super Bowl champ Eli Manning, and he was asked a direct question about the New York Jets quarterback situation. The question went, is there a quarterback out there that would give the Jets a better chance to win in your mind? Or do you think Zach Wilson is their best option at the moment? Now, obviously these were kind of quick, short Q&A style situations, but I felt like this definitely needed a little bit more of a conversation piece around, because his answer was pretty interesting to me for a number of reasons. So his response to that question was, I think Zach is the guy. I think it's hard on him. It's a brand new offense, and this offense was tailored around Aaron Rodgers. They put it in plays that, they put in plays that Aaron was most familiar with and knew the best. Now you got an offense that needs to be tailored around Zach Wilson. He's got to communicate with the coaches and say which plays he's most comfortable with. It's a tough situation for sure. He's a young kid trying to figure this out. The Jets can be a bit patient with him because they got a good defense, but they got to support him and rally around him. He's getting hit at all angles from the media and everybody. So if we want to kind of take this in chunks, right, I think the most deliberate question there is there a quarterback out there that would give us a better chance to win? And he responds with, Zach is the best option, or at least he says, I think Zach is the guy. I want to kind of say that, he's blowing smoke up our behinds, but in all honesty, he's looking at this from a very objective view. Especially being a Giants fan, you would expect that he would probably go more so the route of former Patriots guys that we hear commenting about the team. So to hear him think and say that Zach Wilson is the best option, I think is kind of horse crap. But for what it's worth, at least Saleh has kind of another supporter on this team that thinks that ends up being the case. Now, I think literally you can find anybody else out there. Like we've mentioned a multitude of times, Zach Wilson is quite literally the worst quarterback in the NFL. Now, I haven't checked the updated metrics pretty much, but I know, at last glance in most statistical categories that matter for a quarterback, he's ranking 34th out of 34 out of 34 quarterbacks, or he's teetering in that bottom three ranking in pretty much any other category. So I don't understand the thought process here that another quarterback plugged in immediately, you don't even have to give him a full week, won't be more of a success story than what we're seeing out of Zach Wilson right now. I mean, it's cut clear and dry. Zach Wilson is not a quarterback that understands even the basic nuances of how to succeed in the NFL when it comes to reading a defense, manipulating safeties. He's gotten better at just making the easy give-me throws, anything at the line of scrimmage or behind, which is saying a lot that we're just excited that he can get that done. But outside of a few wild throws every once in a blue moon and maybe a drive that he strings together, generally with some penalty help, this is a guy that largely fails to go out there and put any kind of fear, concern, anxiety in an NFL defense. I mean, we just had comments from one of the Chiefs linebackers today, Willie Gay, or yesterday by the time you guys are seeing this, but he was mentioning in the best, half glass full kind of manner that he could about this New York Jets team being led by Zach Wilson. And he said, they're pretty much run first. They need to pound the ball. Not in so many words, he was basically saying that the New York Jets are desperately afraid to put the success of an NFL game in Zach Wilson's hand. He should be your most important playmaker. That's not going to be catching passes from him. Obviously, you want him to have the ability to go out there and do everything, which sucks because he can. He can make off-schedule plays. He has multiple platforms that he can, we've seen this in the past at least, throw the ball from. And he has a hell of an arm to launch it deep. So to see that we can't utilize or see him succeed with any of these things is a pretty huge statement. So I don't really understand the backing there. Maybe it's just from the standpoint of, towards the end of his career, you're seeing a quarterback that lost his job to a guy that he probably felt wasn't better than him. But I mean, statistics usually aren't everything at the end of the day, but in this case, they paint a very clear picture of exactly what Zach Wilson is. I mentioned this when I was talking to the guys from Let's Talk Jets, and you literally haven't heard a single time where Zach Wilson has been the reason that you've heard the team succeeded, or in any practice setting that he's been just lighting people up, right? Even during this training camp, when there was days where he's thrown multiple touchdowns and things like that, he still wasn't the best player that was on the field. So I think that's saying a lot about him. But moving into kind of what else he said, he talked about the fact that this is a brand new offense. We've heard Saleh and Hackett also speak about this, that everything was tailor-made to Aaron Rodgers. A lot of the input, Aaron Rodgers literally built this playbook with Nathaniel Hackett with principles that he's seen from his last 2 decades in the league. And the guys again at Let's Talk Jets made a very, very good point that if Zach Wilson, who was supposed to be your next man up, your backup number 2 quarterback, can't run the playbook that's being developed for Aaron Rodgers, but essentially you'd want any of your emergency options to be able to play, that's a huge red flag for me. Obviously, this whole narrative was about Aaron Rodgers, us bringing him in, the playoff Super Bowl hopes that we had. But still, I think, again, if you weren't going to bring in another veteran to make sure Zach Wilson essentially never saw the field, it makes zero sense that Zach Wilson can't run any of the plays that are in this playbook so far. And so, to me, Eli Manning doesn't really have much of a leg to stand on here. Now, I do agree with the part that, we do need to try to tailor some things in his playbook to Zach Wilson. It's going to be, again, a lot of a struggle because he doesn't really do anything well. But what we know he theoretically should be able to accomplish is playing off schedule. That means, being able to move the pocket or get him outside of the pocket, play action, and taking some of these deep shots, right? I do think his placement isn't the worst thing in the world. And if nothing else, you're targeting guys like Mecole Hardman, that's a burner. You should be targeting guys like Garrett Wilson, your best player on the offensive side of the ball. And worst case scenario, you're probably getting 50-50 defensive pass interference calls. Something to really help out Zach Wilson around this offense. Give him a bunch of half-field reads if you need to. Give him literally 1 to 2 progression designed, shots. And maybe if things break down, he can improvise and maybe find something else. But we have to do something. If we're going to treat him like a baby and coddle him and do all of these things to make sure he's mentally and emotionally well, we should be doing the same thing to kind of improve his skill set and get something done. We've seen plenty of quarterbacks in the past, not related to the Jets whatsoever, that have succeeded with a very minimal amount of responsibilities on their shoulders. Some of the last bits and pieces here, again, he mentioned communicating with his coaches. Another thing about that, now that I think about it, is Zach Wilson's never really been vocal in any of his press conferences about what he's necessarily seen, how he's manipulated a defense, what he's done in terms of his preparation that he's seen that he can expose. A guy that maybe came in with a chip on his shoulder that didn't actually perform up to the level he would have needed to for the game. Everything is usually, woe is me. I need to get better. We need to check out the tape. I need to figure out how to improve, etc., etc. Everything about this New York Jets team under Zach Wilson turns from being aggressive, going out there, putting up points. You'll always try to figure out the playbook and how to do things better, etc. But you go from a team that can be aggressive and putting defenses on their heels to a sheltered, uninspired, very, very reactive kind of offense. And that's a terrible situation for any team to be in. And then in the final part, as he mentioned, of course, being patient with them. We got the defense. We have, the pieces in terms of weaponry around him. And then the onslaught from, the media, some chinks in the armor that we're hearing from within the building. This isn't one of those seasons. With everything that we've had on the line and invested in Aaron Rodgers, and what the plan A was supposed to be, my biggest pet peeve still is the fact that we can't, if we are trying to adjust, fine, but we do it so slow that by the time it matters, it doesn't, we're not even in the equation for the playoffs anymore. We're having to scratch, dig, claw our way out of something and ask for a crap ton of help from other teams. So it would be nice to be ahead of things for once in a blue moon. I would argue that we don't have any time. Realistically, you're 1-2. You would have had, if you exclude the Cowboys game, the Buffalo Bills, we took advantage of them and whatever happened with Josh Allen and launching all of those, interceptions. But we took advantage there. We stole the W. The Patriots, again, a very winnable game. There was nothing whatsoever impressive that they did against us. As we heard many people say, any team that's scoring 13 points, that should be a winnable game off tops. We're going to have shootouts. Well, it won't be much of a shootout on our side, but we're going to have the Dolphins coming. We're facing the Chiefs. We got the Eagles still on the schedule. Plenty of other teams out there that will be, a handful for our defense as it stands right now if they keep having to play an additional 20, 30, 40 reps beyond what a normal expectation during a hour-long game would be. We need to try to get things corrected now and right now, because you run the risk of burning guys out, alienating other guys, locker room mutiny, whether that be to the coaching staff, whether that be them saying, we just refuse to play for Zach Wilson, right? When it comes to New York Jets, nothing's off the table. We've seen some insane things in years past. Wouldn't be surprised if somebody pulls an Antonio Brown and, they're just done by halftime. We have some very passionate guys that have the talent to help this team win, and we can't even get things, we can't even throw the balls to them successfully in order to have them help us. So it's just wasted talent all across the board. I would imagine with a better quarterback, you immediately see a turnaround from the excuses of not finding ways to utilize Jeremy Ruckert, not finding ways to utilize Randall Cobb, not finding ways to utilize Mecole Hardman. I don't want to hear about another stash and development type year. It's great to have players like Jason Brownlee and stuff in the background, but you should see a lot more guys excelling, stepping up, getting shout outs from across the league if we just had better talent at quarterback. So either way, let me know what your guys' thoughts were about, Eli Manning's comments here regarding Zach Wilson and the New York Jets, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.